Hi there, BookTube, it's Ros and
Steve.
Here for a guest appearance because the two of us are both taking part in a group read of Don Quixote by
Miguel de Cervantes.
his Spanish pronunciation is much better than mine. He tells me it shouldn't be Quixote either, but
It's lost in the mists of time.
Yeah. And it's a read that was sort of kicked off, I guess, with the excuse of March of the Mammoths, because it certainly is a longer book that you need a little extra kind of push to get you over the line of starting, I think. Now, not going to make lots of videos about this through the 8 weeks that we're reading it, but I thought it would be great to make one fairly early on with some of our sort of first impressions, initial thoughts from the two of us, but from all the group on Voxer. There's 21 of us on Voxer joining in the group read. I think certainly at least 16 of that 21 have been commenting and obviously kind of got things underway. So, but I think this video is for, apart from me and Steve, the people in the group, but also if you've previously, already read Don Quixote and you'd like to throw in some comments or, things to encourage us or warn us or tell us to look out for, that'd be lovely. And if you've thought about reading it and being intimidated by the fact that it's, long and 400 years old, it might be good to hear some sort of first impressions too. So that's my thinking. And I've got in my hand a phone with the comments on the Voxer group, so we can kind of bring in some of those as well as our thoughts. So let's go for first impressions.
It's long.
It's long. It is long. It is long. Our edition, we're reading the Edith Grossman translation, and it's 940 pages, I think.
Yeah. So we're about a quarter of the way through, more or less, at the moment. So,
yes,
after
nearly.
a couple of weeks in, so that's good going.
Yeah. And has that felt arduous?
I think it's a good translation. I'm enjoying it. It's a lot less challenging than some reads of that age, I think, largely because I think the translator has gone with the flow of the book as it was written and decided to put most of it in a relatively modern language, with Quixote speaking in somewhat flowery olden style talk.
Yeah, but of course not everyone in the group is reading the same edition, and some people in the group are reading it in Spanish, and I imagine that's a bit more challenging because it's like me reading Shakespeare, which is completely doable, but there's a sort of vocabulary and idiom that is unfamiliar. So although he was writing it in very much in contemporary everyday Spanish, it's not going to feel like that reading it now. And then, as you say, the flowery bits where Quixote is sort of harking back to things he's read, that's going to be even more.
He does a lot of harking.
He does a lot of harking. He does. Oh yes, he does. But I think the sort of general first impression of the group is it's not as bad as we thought it would be, which sounds a bit negative, doesn't it? But it's much more accessible.
I guess there's a reason why it's lasted, isn't there? It's because it is actually readable. It's just daunting in anticipation, but actually once you start, it's very easy to read. It's very funny. It's funnier than I anticipated.
Yes.
And there's a lot of jokes about bodily functions.
Yeah, that's definitely the theme of this week's discussion, isn't it?
Yeah. Because
there's a lot of vomit and poo in this, this one, and humour from that. But there's humour on all sorts of levels through the book, isn't there? Yeah.
And I think as people have commented in the Voxer chat, it's very much almost probably it's older than that, but it's a foundation of the comedy duo, as it were. And it's the classic. The person who thinks he's clever who isn't clever, and the person who thinks he's not clever being cleverer than he thinks, or having a native cunning.
Yes, Sandra in the chat compared Sancho Panza. Oh, I can't talk. Sancho Panza, who's kind of Don Quixote's sidekick, she said she kept thinking of Baldric in Blackadder.
Yeah. Although Blackadder is actually smarter and more vicious than Don Quixote, I would say.
Yes.
I think of it being a bit more as being sort of the Laurel and Hardy kind of thing, particularly with some of the slapstick elements in it.
Yes.
Also, sort of a bit of Vladimir and Estragon from Waiting for Godot.
Yeah.
If you see them as a comedy duo.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think we're all enjoying the element of humour in the book. I mean, I think people's feeling about slapstick varies, and that's not the only.
Someone's always getting whacked in the face with something, or
yes.
It's...
Now that is something that lots of people have commented on, which is the level of violence in the book.
Yeah, well, they're living in a very violent time, aren't they?
But that's exactly what. I can't remember who it was who said that. It might have been Faith or Suzanne. I think, that it's almost like because it was a violent time when there wasn't perhaps such effective medicine, it's almost like you had to laugh at it because what else could you do? Or it was more ubiquitous in their lives, I suppose.
Yeah, let's not forget that Cervantes fought in the Battle of Lepanto and was injured in that, permanently injured, disabled by it, and then kept as a slave or for quite some time. So he knew that life was hard.
Life was tough, and tough things happen.
And I guess if things like that happen to you, you'd be quite happy to write about people getting tossed in a blanket or whatever.
Yes. But the pair of them are constantly getting beaten up, and then on they go to the next adventure.
And that's part of it. I guess it's about resilience, which I guess
it's certainly
Cervantes might have known a bit about.
Yes, that's true. Now, one of the topics that came up really early on in the discussion was about Quixote is he mad? Is he deluded? How much? Who's craziest? Does he know that what he's doing is fantasy? Is it? Does he believe it? And I'll have ambivalent opinions on that, I think.
I don't think it matters really.
Yeah.
Because what this so far, what I'm getting from this book is the sheer love of storytelling, and it is about and Quixote tells stories. He listens to stories. He creates stories. He sees everybody else sees sheep charging at each other across a plain, and he can give you the names and histories of the generals or the. He
sees it as two armies of knights galloping towards each other, not sheep.
It's the power of imagination, I think, and that So whether that is, the imagination is fantasy. Imagination is but that's what human beings, we like doing that sort of thing. Yeah. We love a story.
Although his friends from the village, the priest and the barber, they definitely think he's gone crazy and want to kind of rescue him from himself.
And are quite prepared to burn books.
Yes, because this is, you're saying it's about stories, and it is, and inventing stories. But it's also a book about the power of reading, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, written at a time when the Inquisition was trundling along on its helpful, harmful, destructive
that's
way.
True, actually. But so if you haven't read the book, if you don't know, the concept, as it were, is that Don Quixote has been reading. He's been reading too much, like a few of us.
Very dangerous.
Dangerous thing, reading too much. Yeah. Reading these sort of chivalric romances and picaresque sort of stories of knights errant, and knight errant, yes, and so on. And it's gone to his head, and he's decided that that's what he's going to do. He's going to go off on his horse and have adventures and save people and.
Which largely seem to me to be provoking people into fights, getting beaten up. Also robbing people. I mean, say knight errant, it's highway robbery, I think, a lot of the time. He steals basins off of barbers.
Yes, thinks they're a helmet.
He swaps people's mules for Sancho Panza's because it's an upgrade. As
Or an upgraded donkey, yes.
Nick's religious people's food and quite happily consumes it. So, you know.
But, and he's essentially a good character, isn't he? He means to do good. Or do you think it's a
I think that's that whole thing, isn't it? What does it mean to be good? I guess
that's true. That's true. But a few people in the group have commented about how they that Cervantes is kind of making fun of his characters, but in a quite affectionate way.
Yeah.
And also that what you get as you even sort of like, as I say, we're sort of 200 and something pages in, is you start to feel, you the reader, quite an affection for particularly for the pair of them, for Quixote and
I think you're supposed to do that. I mean,
definitely.
I mean, Quixote is searching for freedom in a sense, isn't he? He's looking, to exercise his freedom of choice, his freedom to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And that has always got a cost to other people. I guess people exercising their own free will. It's going to impact on other people to a degree.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I mean, for me, in the first chunk that we read, and I joined the thing too late to discuss it on the thread, is Marcella's speech in the first chunk we read.
Oh, and several people in the group, Tilly and others, said that was one of the best moments of the book so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can't understand why that hasn't been put into English lessons or whatever, because it's a masterpiece of rhetoric, or mistress piece, I suppose, about how people can't avoid being attractive, and that is the other person's fault if it's not their fault if people find them attractive.
And that doesn't mean that they then should be obliged to love the people that fall in love with them. It's a bit of a women's autonomy speech. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's sad that 400 years later that is still something which is relevant. Whether it's a fundamentalist religion that says that women need to cover themselves up so as not to inflame men's passions, or High Court judges that say that women shouldn't wear certain clothes out on nights out for a similar reason.
Or stalkers that say, oh, well, I had to do it because she attracted me.
So I think it's sad that it's still relevant, but the argument was being made 400 years ago in Spain. So,
yes. And one of the characteristics of the book that's becoming obvious now, we're sort of, as I say, about a quarter of the way in, is that episodic quality. Again, someone was sort of picking up on that, and that we get lots of stories within stories. I suppose when you say it's a book about stories. So the story about Marcella and Chrysotomo was one, and then we get Cardenio's story is another.
Well, it's very meta.
It is a very meta book. This is metafiction, yes.
Yeah. But it's also it's one which is designed for book lovers or story lovers, isn't it? And that's what it is, because you get all of the stories that Don Quixote has read, which have provoked him onto this, or led him into this mission. I think you're going to get recounted over the course of the book.
And we get bits in the style of the things that he's read.
So I'm slightly worried that in a few weeks' time I'm going to be going off on adventures, looking to...
No, going off on your horse.
Yeah, I'm not sure if a cat would bear that.
He hasn't got a horse.
Got a cat.
No. Even with your Don Quixote delusional imagination, you're not going to mistake our cat for
a charger,
for your noble steed. Yeah. I love the way the author does address us in the book. Talking about being, a bit meta. It's like I've realised that that's something that really appeals to me. When you feel like the author's talking directly to you and kind of jumps out of the story to do that.
And these lovely little touches about he comes to the end of a chunk and says that's the end of it, really.
I ran out there.
That's all the stuff that there was, and then comes back and says, oh, but actually I found another bit written by a Moorish writer who also
in Arabic. I've got it translated.
Yeah. And that's very much about the mechanics of it, and it's about I am telling you a story.
Yeah. So we're thoroughly enjoying it, as you can tell. I'm very optimistic that I'll continue to enjoy the other 700 odd pages, and we may come back, or I may come back with Tilly, and sort of do something later on, further on. But I think that's enough for now. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's this has got all the makings of a classic.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It one could last.
Do you think it might last? And if anyone else in the group fancies making a video too, feel free.